Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to Gamecast. I'm James, and tonight we're going to be talking about Sony and Microsoft. With me, I have Brad,
Oh,
Alex,
hello.
and Mr. G.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining in.
And as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you all. But tonight, we have some exciting news, or I guess less exciting news for some people. The Sony CEO took a pay cut, about 50%, and the rest of the board of directors are losing their bonuses. We've seen a similar situation at Nintendo back in January, where Iwata took a pay cut because of the staggering sales of the Wii U. But everybody knows that the PlayStation 4 has sold over 7 million units within the first 5 or 6 months of its launch. So why would the Sony CEO really need to take that pay cut? And that's actually very simple. The Sony name is actually hemorrhaging money. The PlayStation is doing fantastic. Its parent company is not. Someone who knows a little bit more about it than I do is going to take it from here and give his thoughts on it. Mr. G, take it away.
Oh, cool. Sorry. So what James was saying is that Sony's what's known as a conglomerate, or it used to be, it's still a conglomerate. Primarily their money-making divisions are insurance and financial services, which are doing well. The PlayStation division, Sony Electronics, which is their brand moniker for their TVs, cameras, etc., and Vio, which is their PC line. Sony's been losing money, plus their entertainment offerings, such as Sony Music,
Sony Pictures,
Sony Pictures, Sony Television, a wide variety of entertainment offerings. So Sony as itself, the entertainment portion has been doing well, the entertainment including PlayStation. It's the hardware business, so TVs, as well as cameras to some extent, mainly TVs and PCs that are eating at their profits. I think they put out quality hardware. Most people say their hardware is a little more pricier than some of their competitors.
Which I agree with.
Yeah.
I mean, you're essentially paying for a premium. You're paying for a quality product, but not everybody sees it that way.
I mean, it's like any other. It's any other brand, right? Part of it's you're paying for the Sony brand, just like you would pay for a specific computer from a fruit company or some sort.
They have in the past had like products like the Sony SimulView TV that went with their PlayStation 3. That big thing with Gran Turismo. Was it Gran Turismo 5 or 6?
5.
5? Yeah, where they had that, what was it, like a 32-inch TV you could buy?
24.
24-inch? Okay, even less. 24-inch, and you had to buy glasses. The glasses were like $30, and it really only had 2 games that came out for it. It was just kind of a flop, and I think the TV was like $200-something too.
500. It released at 500. It came with a pair of glasses. So it's like the glasses in and of itself. That's the standard for active 3D televisions. You're paying $30 to $50 for a pair of active 3D glasses, compared to passive 3D glasses where they're like $10, $15 a shot, because there's no technology to make them actually active. It's doing screen flickering in those lenses, so it's a little more cost impeding to people that buy it.
Yeah. But I mean, Mr. G, well, like, why do you really think that they're hemorrhaging so much money outside of their entertainment then?
I mean, people aren't buying their products.
It's as simple as that.
They've spent a lot of money on R&D, and that hasn't been well. They've had issues with the past, particularly in LCD yields, I believe, were a problem.
Yeah.
So panel yields. They partnered with Panasonic, I believe, on some of their displays, and that didn't go so well. So there was a story, a news article that came out yesterday where Sony and Panasonic's like OLED vision is almost stopping. And so there's going to be less of a less of an influence of OLEDs as Sony's going to the 4Ks, which the 4Ks, while niche, they're still a little more profitable for the company.
And they just released a Vita. They just released a Vita with an OLED screen.
No, they released a Vita
it's
with an
LCD.
LCD screen.
Is it LCD and the old one
Yeah.
is the? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it is. That's why they're getting rid of it. That makes a lot more sense.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Plus, it's it's more cost friendly. It's cheaper to make.
But a lot of people don't realize, and I guess the media and all the articles say otherwise, that PlayStation's doing fantastic. But it's the parent company that's hurting, and if the parent company's hurting, eventually it might actually flip to where PlayStation is the brand. It's just PlayStation.
Yeah, well, there was an activist. Sony had activist investor problems within the last year, and so a guy by the name of Dan Loeb and his Third Point LLC hedge fund owns like 8% of the Sony stock, and he was really pitching that Sony spin off their entertainment offerings, not necessarily PlayStation, but the music and the pictures, because those provide more value and can provide more value in the long run. So it's almost a double-edged sword, because Sony in itself, you think of hardware design and engineering, quality engineering.
Yeah.
And I see that in most of their products, and that's sort of what the PlayStation 4 is. The PlayStation 4 is when all their divisions come together, you get, a product that showcases what Sony as a global company can do.
And then, because obviously the Eastern market is a lot different than the Western market over here, you generally don't see CEOs or the board of directors taking anything out of their pockets, where Iwata and Kaz do. They take it upon themselves to understand that their companies are hurting, and instead of laying people off or getting rid of departments, they take it out of their own funds, and then they try to revitalize the company. And I know a lot of us, like Brad, Mr. G, and Alex, they're very avid Sony people. Me, I have a PlayStation 3. I love Spider-Man. I love all those movies. So really, I haven't been as involved in the Sony PlayStation community as I probably should have. But their pay cuts will hopefully make it so we can, obviously we will still see the PlayStation brand, but I would love to see the Sony brand stay afloat for as long as possible, because they do make quality TVs, they do make quality cameras, fantastic movies most of the time. Generally, the Spider-Man pictures are fantastic.
I think one of the nice things too, though, is even a few years ago, when you heard about, Japan hasn't been having the best economic growth and whatever, and a lot of CEOs were taking pay cuts. I think what it just shows is that it's they make millions and millions of dollars, and 50% is not really, for us, if we took a 50% pay cut, that'd be a big deal. He might only make $10 million this year, but I think what it just shows is that they're more dedicated to the company and seeing that it's going to succeed in that manner. So I think it's a good thing that both of them, and I think, especially with Iwata and just the way that the stuff that Nintendo's kind of dealing with right now, he wants to show people that he can, kind of do things, and he doesn't have to be paid exuberant amounts of money to have that happen. I think that's the same thing with Kaz Hirai. He kind of looked at it the same way. So I think it's a good thing for them to kind of have that, and they'll have a little bit more drive. And
yeah.
I mean it's a good strategy for keeping your job.
That too.
That too.
But I don't know about you, Alex, but I mean, we kind of stay on the pulse for this kind of stuff. What are your thoughts? Maybe I don't know if you know too much about it, but what would you say? What do you think Iwata and Kaz have in mind when they take these pay cuts, when they take it upon themselves? That the business is basically a reflection of themselves.
Well, like you said, over here we I don't think we've ever seen a CEO, take such a huge pay cut like that. You see companies like Microsoft and stuff like that, and you see, they're not always super greedy, like Bill Gates, he gives away a lot of money to charity and everything, but, the current guy who's running Microsoft, you don't see him taking cuts or whatever, from, the Xbox One losses or whatever's going on.
No, they just cut off the Kinect.
Yeah, they're trying to
We'll
make some money back.
later.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, but
Well, the
yeah,
Microsoft guy just started too. The new one just started. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's probably trying to do whatever, but it's nice to know that that they are taking the cuts and trying to put that money back into the company and seeing what they can do. Instead of, like you said, instead of just laying off a bunch of people. Like over here, that's typically what the route that many CEOs take.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go back a little bit to how the Sony brand itself is hemorrhaging, money like crazy. Well, maybe not like crazy, but they are losing money. And you think back to like earlier 2000s. You had Sony cameras. Half the TVs you had were Sonys. We used to have a big, for back when they had projector CRTs, we had a big Sony, one like that. And it's like nowadays, Samsung dominates the TV market. You don't really see the Sony Bravia TVs anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of camera stuff has started moving towards the smartphone market since unless you're buying a DSLR, people typically don't buy compacts.
Yeah.
But they make quality cameras. I have a Sony CyberShot downstairs, and it's probably better than my Canon DSLR. It's like a Rebel T1i or whatever, and I carry that thing around. But yeah, that whole subcompact compact camera market's dying, and so Sony's taking losses from that. So really, the only thing they have keeping them afloat, is the VAO laptops are all dying. I've honestly never seen anybody owning one of those. So that just shows. So you have the lack of them selling TVs. You have the no more VAO laptops or whatever computers they do. Their cameras are still there, but the market itself is becoming more niche over time because of smartphones. And so honestly, all they have left is PlayStation and Sony Pictures and whatever other media platforms they have.
Oh yeah. Now anybody feel free to jump in. This is my little. I want to figure out what you guys think. So when Sony announced their pay cut, it was a big deal. News everywhere. People are up in not up in arms, but they're rejoicing. They're like, oh, Sony is trying to be a very good company. But when Nintendo did it back in January, it was riddled with Nintendo articles. Why is Iwata still in charge? But Nintendo's always been generally solely a toy company, but Sony has the the entertainment, the cameras, the laptops, the games. Why is it different now that Kaz is doing it? Why is Kaz seeming like this martyr? He's losing his money to help the company.
I mean, for me, I think it's just a lot of people are looking at Nintendo in a kind of a different light. It's like they themselves don't even, they've said it before, they don't really consider themselves to be competition for, Sony and for Microsoft. Yeah. But I think with them, it's just because of the fact that the last, 3 years or whatever has been pretty bad for them. And, you have to kind of look at the person who's kind of running things. And when, it's like Iwata's may not have made the best decisions on some of the things. So I think that's why a lot of people are kind of going after him, because they're so specifically just Nintendo. Like, people know who Kaz Hirai is if you're a Sony fan. But if you're a gaming fan, you know who Iwata is.
Yeah.
You know that he runs Nintendo. And you know who, like Miyamoto is. You know who these people are because they're super influential. But I think it's just the Sony people are, rejoicing, and they're kind of be like, oh, yeah, we really want him to do this kind of a thing. But those are the same people that are, the ones that are talking about Iwata shouldn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's a degree that I agree with, because he has made some less, than awesome choices. But I don't feel that it's directly his fault. I think it's a culmination of a few things. And
oh yeah,
But
Well, I mean, just to comment, Iwata's also been in the job the longest. This is Iwata's 12th year, and this is Kaz's like first and a half.
Yeah.
1.5 years. It's like Kaz is still almost a newborn in this aspect in terms of running, Sony as a whole versus
Yes.
one of its tent poles. But Iwata's been, this isn't Iwata's first system launch. He's been around since the GameCube. I want to say around since the GameCube launch,
Yeah.
either as president or I want to say shortly after the GameCube launch, he took president. So he's been through a couple console cycles at the helm.
And nobody.
He's released the DS and Wii, which both sold really well.
That's
But
what
he
I was just
also has the 3DS and the 3DS price cut 3 months later, as well as the Wii U and its not so stunning sales growth in its first year and a half on store shelves. So it's a different world. And I think what also, in terms of Iwata, what also kept him there is Yamuchi, who recently died last year. He was majority shareholder.
Yep.
And I think he still was involved in the company as well.
Yeah. But with Sony taking price cuts and the PlayStation brand taking off as we all knew it would, looking at the pre-orders, looking at the numbers, looking at the hype for the PlayStation 4, this leads us into the counterpart.
Sorry, it doesn't mean that just because it's sold well doesn't mean they're making money off of it. It's sold X amount. It doesn't mean, they're making all this money on it.
This is true.
I think they're still losing, but we can continue to the next losing alternative.
The next losing alternative, because Nintendo is not in the ring with these two people. Nintendo waits for whoever wins and then hopefully can make friends with the next person. Which means we have Microsoft. And Microsoft back in, I think, August of 2013, prior to the release of the Xbox One, stated the Xbox One will not work without Kinect. Will not work, but it functions mainly with the Xbox One Kinect, which is obviously Kinect 2.0, which is a lot better than the original Kinects. I was making sure my Kinect was still there, actually. And just today they announced a $3.99 bundle. Well, it's not a bundle anymore because it doesn't come with the Kinect. Up for pre-order in Europe and America. Yes, askew. And what does this mean for the people who invested the $500 into the games console because either they liked the console, they liked the Kinect, the new Kinect? What does this mean for the innovation of the Kinect? Are they going to stop making games like Kinect Sports Rivals? I don't know where they're going to go from here.
No, I mean they said that it's still a critical part of their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be one of those things where it's just like, if you want to put stuff into the game that utilizes the Kinect, by all means do it, but we're not going to force you to do anything anymore. I mean, they weren't truly twisting people's arms about it in the first place, but they still wanted people to somehow utilize the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a smart idea, and I mean, and also all the other things that they've been doing, like they just got rid of the whole gold membership, so you can stream Netflix, Hulu, and all those things. And they're turning some of these things around, these practices that they've said that they wouldn't do, and that this is their plan and this is what they're sticking with. They're switching them up, and in my opinion, it's a direct response just to how well the PlayStation 4 is doing versus the Xbox One.
It was the backlash of the people who read all of these things and they were outraged.
Yeah. So we saw it last year too, just right after E3 when they announced all this stuff where it's like you have to be online and you're not going to be able to trade your games in. And 2 weeks later, all of that was gone. And it's they basically are taking some more steps forward in order for them to really get back into a true competition that they're not being outsold, by 2.5 million units. They don't want it to extend to, 5 million units by the time that, the holiday season hits. And it'll help. It'll make the decision for a lot of Xbox 360 owners right now. It'll be an easier kind of adjustment for them to get an Xbox One as opposed to switching over to a PlayStation 4. But it's, it's still, it's interesting to me. I would have rather seen Microsoft kind of just stick by what it said it was going to do and do it.
Yeah.
But
you made your bed. You might as well, and your parents tell you this all the time. Whatever. You made your bed. You might as well lie in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you guys played Connect Sports Rivals.
Yeah.
I don't know, Alex or Brad.
But if you were gonna lie in it, why would you make it in the first place?
Yeah.
But keep going. Continue.
And the Connect it's pretty nifty. Like, not even just pretty nifty, but the fact that I can walk into my room, be, tired after work, and then go Xbox on, just lay in my bed, and then bam, the Xbox turns on, and then it goes, "Hello, James." Like, that's fantastic for me. And yeah, people don't like the Kinect, but not to say that people picked up the Sony camera, with every system, but they sold out. They were almost impossible to find, which means a number of people picked it up. And if you do the math, it's really only like a $40 difference buying the PS4 and the i, and then the Xbox One that came with the Kinect. But the Kinect is more powerful than the i, and granted, the i isn't an essential part to it, but neither is the Kinect. You can unplug it if you really honestly don't want it, but you have it there. So now what they're going to do is they're going to charge you for it, and it's going to be, what did they say, upwards, actually, Brad, you mentioned this earlier today, how did you say, it's not going to be $100, something?
Yeah, they said that it's not going to be $100, just to make it an even thing. It'll be the same thing like they did with the original Kinect. It'll probably, you'll buy the system at $400, and then if you want the Kinect later on, you might spend another like $30 or $40 in the long run.
No, it won't be 100, but I'm not thinking it won't be more than 100.
I was gonna say like 60, 70 maybe, around that ballpark.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to charge 150 like the original Kinect.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, I think it'll be more expensive because they're basically telling you that you're getting a deal by buying the $500 system.
Yep. Exactly.
So
it's a bundle. It's cheaper. It's a different consumer feeling.
Yeah.
So I have an Xbox One. Mr. G has an Xbox One. You two don't, but Brad, you want to get a PS4. Understandable. You like the IP that's on there. You like the user interface. You just generally like everything else about the PlayStation 4. But Alex, what about you? I know you're a big Microsoft guy. Would the $399 price cut and Kinectless bundle appease you? Would that make you get an Xbox One?
Okay, I'm gonna answer that question, and after that, I'm gonna go back chronologically, just kind of to backtrack about Microsoft's, what they've been doing the past thing. But I honestly have the Kinect on I have a 360, the Reach Edition, small over there, and I use that just in my room, just whenever I want to play Xbox. But in our media room, we have the Kinect bundle that, it doesn't have the hard drive in it. And what I do is I just take that hard drive and I pop it in that one. That bundle, it was, I forget how much it was, but it was cheap. It came with the Kinect and everything. And every time I go in that room, I do the same thing. I take my controller and I press the guide button. I let the Xbox turn on. I say sign into Profile 4, do it, play DVD or play disc and everything. And it's so much easier. And I've played like Mass Effect. Was it Mass Effect 3? I think that had all the Kinect commands in it.
Yep.
That and Halo Anniversary. I loved the voice commands in it because as long as you don't have people shouting over the room, it works.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, in a huge living room, you can use it as a microphone, and it picks up the TV and cancels it out and everything. It works perfectly. The obviously the motion detection wasn't perfect, but a lot of the games that came out with it, they were fun. They were motion control games. It was a gimmick, but they worked for what they needed to work for. And from what I've seen from the Kinect 2.0, I really want one because everything that this does, that's going to do it better. They showed it off at E3 the one year, how they had the muscle detection and all that, crazy tech they got in it now. And between that and how all the controls and everything in Xbox One orient around the Kinect, I would honestly prefer getting the $4.99 bundle with it. The only reason I honestly haven't bought an Xbox One is because I'm sure down the line they're gonna probably do a Halo 5 bundle, and then I'll pick it up then. Because honestly, the only games that I've wanted for the Xbox One are Titanfall and Destiny, and both of those have come out on 360.
Yes.
And to go back to say about how originally the Xbox One was going to have the profile-based DRM and
Yes.
everything was going to be in the cloud. Honestly, it was kind of odd because when I talked to people who were like watching it directly, like I was in class, so I couldn't watch it at the time, but I was just watching people's comments go and stream in through my text messages or whatever, and people said, oh, they're gonna do like disk-based DRM, and they're not gonna be able to trade games, and I was like, well, that's what Steam does, and Steam is such a great platform. You get games on the cheap and everything, and it's easy.
But you just hit it though, Alex. Is Steam is super cheap,
Mm-hmm.
and
It
if
wouldn't be able to
you
give you
wanted
the
to get to
prices.
that point,
Yeah. Well, I
it's
mean,
like,
even if you look at some of the arcade games, like down the line, there's games that you get really cheap. They're doing the gold games now, and it's not like you're getting all the AAA titles, but like just recently they put out Dungeon Defenders, and I love that. I loved that game when it came out on a computer and everything, and all my friends have it, so now we can all play it on Xbox Live. But and then they had what I was really psyched for was having the cloud-based stuff, because what I love about Steam is I can go to whatever computer in my house or whatever, and if it's got the game downloaded on it, or if it doesn't, then I just download it and you just play it, and you just kind of have it with you. And then there was going to be, I think, a feature where you could like share games with like a friend for a limited time, or you could take your games over to your friend's house or whatever. And then when they backed out on it, a lot of the friends that were psyched for all those features, they were just like, what the hell? Because I honestly, I know people like to trade and like, loan games to each other, but I honestly I haven't sold a single game that I have. I haven't ever traded any in. I've maybe loaned a couple CDs like once or twice, but honestly, whenever I've recommended a game to somebody, I just tell them, go buy it. I don't usually ever loan them.
Yeah.
Because I only ever recommend a game when I really like kind of trust them that you're gonna want to buy this, so you might as well just buy it and get it. But
yeah, but that's also like you hit on something there too. It's like you and like in James and even Mr. G, like you guys are all considered collectors, so you guys hold on to your stuff. So it's like you don't necessarily.
If you saw the state of my consoles, you wouldn't call me a collector.
But still the thing is though is you don't trade your stuff, so it's like there's a lot of people who still want to do that because there's not a lot of people that are gonna play a game and then once they're done with it, they're done with it. That's just kind of how the video game market works now.
The target demographic is 18 to 35-year-old males, and generally they get the Call of Duties, the Assassin's Creeds, and then when they come out with the next one, they trade it in to their favorite game retail establishment, and they get the newest game.
Well, yeah, because once you play the new one, there's no point to the old one anymore. Which
Right.
in a lot of the games I play, that's not the case. But go ahead.
But sorry, it's not even that. It's like in certain cases, right? Gaming is expensive. Gaming is not gaming in the most part. If you want to have a game collection and continue to play every new title that releases, you're putting tons of money into it.
Yep.
And for some people, the only way that they can keep up with the Joneses is to, trade in every game when they're done with it. That's how they fund That's how they fund their. I'm gonna say habit, but that's how they fund their appetite for for that stuff. It's their way of buying that. In certain cases, that's what people have to do.
And I'm completely fine with that. I was a little meh on the the disc-based DRM. It really didn't matter to me because like anybody knows, I rarely trade anything in. But I understand where people are coming from. But it kind of goes into where does like people shy away from innovation and yet they scream for it. They scream for the newest and the greatest, but then when the company steps forward and does it and tries to implement it, they either one botch it completely, or they have a really great idea and they don't market it. They don't tell people about it. And I'm wondering, like, is this going to hinder the next company? Like, what if Sony decides to do something? Are they going to be a little hesitant because they saw the backlash from like the fans of Microsoft saying that they're just jumping ship, they're going straight to Sony. There's nothing else. Like once that E3 announcement was made, boom, Sony got so many more fans. It wasn't even funny.
Right, but I think Sony also took it. Sony also looked at what their competition was doing and acted on it.
They capitalized.
Oh, yeah.
It can be said that if you look at the marketing before E3, Sony, for its most part, included the camera in every one of its press image shots. For the most part, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like after the Kinect was announced, and between the Microsoft press conference and the Sony press conference 6 or 7 hours later, it's you could probably hear the Sony staff saying, let's just go to Plan B, remove the camera, sell it as an accessory, and drop the price. We can beat on price, and we can beat on any of the camera issues that people seem to be having. It's I think they took and acted and used that to their competitive advantage.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Is there any other thoughts for tonight on any of the topics, just to wrap up everything?
Just to continue what I was saying before, I wanted to bring this all the way back to what I was saying, bring it back to Microsoft dropping the Kinect in favor of a cheaper console. I believe you brought it up earlier. There's some developers that Microsoft told them, yeah, go ahead, it's going to be bundled with every console, so use it. I mean, that's probably, Nintendo did that with the Wii U gamepad. You always have that second screen, so the same way developers could use a second screen on a 3DS, you could use a match screen, whatever. And there were certain developers that were making Kinect 2.0 base games, and they were just like, well, we're screwed because there's no more Kinect bundled with it, so in order to play our game. And that was, I think, a problem with a lot of Kinect-based games that came out for the 360, was you had to go buy the Kinect and then play those games.
Yeah.
And some of those games were just like, I would call gimmicky, like Kinect
like
Adventures and stuff like that. Yes, and then but there was a couple games like Dance Central. Was it Dance Central? That game worked perfectly. It registers everything properly and Zumba. Yeah, that and Zumba, and they're not. I guess you could call them like a Rock Band game. You could have multiple people come over for a party and play it and whatever. It's a full-fledged game, and now it's like, developers who are developing those games are just like, well, what's the point now? Which was something I was looking forward to, that they wanted the Kinect to stay a part of it, because then the developers, they have a reason to be developing things like the Mass Effect 3 voice commands and everything, or gestures in game and stuff like that. Stuff for more immersion, stuff that they could play around with. But now that's not there, it's like, well, are we going to put the man hours in for developing this, or or not, and just focus more on whatever else they want to do? Because the Kinect, if the Kinect's not there, what's the point of putting it in?
Exactly.
If only so many people are going to use it, it's like, yeah, they're going to praise it, but is that going to make somebody go buy Kinect just to do that?
Mm-hmm. To that point, it segments the market. It's
it's what Microsoft
device.
It's what Microsoft said with the original Kinect. Quote unquote, this game is better with Kinect.
Yeah.
And with Kinect 2.0, that couldn't be any more true, with all the advances they made over the first one. But now it's, now we're at another standpoint where, the developers are confused what to do with it now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look, we're essentially back to square one. It's
Right.
these devices are fancy streaming players, and they play traditional games. But if you
Yep.
want, a camera, you can get it. It's the innovation. While there, it's almost non-existent for 7 years later.
Speaking of media devices, that's well, a lot of consoles are trying to be that all-in-one thing that sits under your TV and streams everything. They want to be the Google Chromecast. They want to be the Apple TV. They want to be everything in one box. So you buy that one box, and you buy their box. And that's probably why Microsoft actually dropped the gold subscription and everything for Netflix or whatever, because it's about 60-70% media player and then part console. So it's like, well, we want the more casual people to say, okay, well, my kids can play the games and then all of my Netflix and everything is on it. And if you buy it, it's like, oh, I got to pay the $50 and then log into my kid's account for the family service and everything. And I believe they tweaked that. Now it's console based. It's not like 5 accounts or whatever for a family account for gold or whatever. But either way, now.
Yeah, it's home gold only on Xbox.
Yeah, home gold or whatever it's called. Well, they discontinued it for 360 as well. But the point is, it's like the people who don't want to pay for gold, they can still use all the networking, or not networking, I'm sorry, multimedia features, without having to worry about, paying the yearly subscription or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, if the kids don't play it online, then whatever, then they have games for the kids.
Yeah, no, I can attest to that. My Xbox One, for the most part, was a Netflix box. I have probably almost 800 hours in Netflix. So, and that's only counting the Xbox One. That's not counting using my Wii U or my PC or my phone. So, unfortunately, it looks like, and you can look at a history book and understand it, those who don't research history, look into history, are doomed to repeat it. And just because you made the history in the first place doesn't mean you won't repeat it again. I guess that's all for tonight.
What? Oh, 3D came back. Nintendo's done 3D twice now.
It has. But the Virtual Boy is a completely other monster that we can't tackle tonight. I know that for a fact.
But there was the one other thing that I wanted to say, in that Games with Gold on Xbox One in particular is gonna be just like Sony's PlayStation Plus. It's once you download those games, they're free as long as you're an Xbox Live Gold subscriber on Xbox One.
That is true, but I think Sony has a better handle on what games are free, because what I've seen with Games with Gold on the Xbox 360 is really there's no appealing games on it. Like Alex said, there was Dungeon Defenders, understandable, but I'm pretty sure I got Borderlands 2 on my PlayStation Plus, and then as well as Outlast, which is a $30 game on Steam or $20 game on Steam.
Yeah. But these aren't like, they're not saying, oh man, here's a dartboard of Xbox titles and we're just gonna throw darts and pick one. These are all, and similar with Plus, these are all very calculated.
Oh, they are.
Very calculated decisions, and they're, there's money changing hands with the developers that made them. It's not, everybody says it's free. It's technically free. You're not paying for it, but you're paying a subscription fee, and that subscription fee is getting subdivided between various parties.
Oh, sure.
And plus, I felt a lot of the Games with Gold, at least on Xbox 360, they tied in with other marketing strategies. So, for example, I forget which game, the Halo, one of the Halos was free, part of Games with Gold, but Microsoft tied that into their Halo 5 announcement. Similar at last year's E3. Right now, it's Halo Spartan Assault is going to be free with Gold on Xbox One. And there's a new Halo coming out. These are all, they're all subliminally messaging to get that.
But Sony still has better calculations than Xbox.
Sony probably works with their third parties. I agree. Yes, there's quality titles on there, but it's still they're not necessarily. People are paying for it. It's not just they can have it. They're saying we want prime real estate. It's an exclusive market.
Yes.
If you want an exclusive, it's just like what Microsoft did with Titanfall. Titanfall was Titanfall was an exclusive. And what Sony did with GTA back in the day. They were all exclusive. They were all very calculated plans.
They were.
For sure.
So, any closing thoughts? Or is that the closing thoughts?
My last thing is I'm going to be just kind of interested to see how many people, once they start taking trades on the actual Connect 2.0 at certain retailers, how many people are actually going to bring them in.
Yeah. I will be sure to talk to my friends who work at certain retailers, your favorite game place, wherever it is, and I want to know what their thoughts are on it, because from what I understand, there's tons of Connects at Best Buys, at GameStops, at third-party retailers, like we have a place called Mind Games around us. What is the Connect 2.0's fate? And I honestly want to see, and only time will tell, what is left as far as innovation goes. Nobody likes the gamepad. Nobody likes the Kinect. Everybody loves the flagship PS4. So, where are we left? Where is the next step in gaming? But that is for another episode. Tonight we had the discussion of Sony and Microsoft. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about the whole discussion, what you think Sony's going to do, what you think Microsoft's going to do, and what your opinion is on the Xbox One without the Kinects. As always, I have Brad with me, Alex, and Mr. G. So click subscribe for future videos, reviews, just discussions of any kind. I'm confused.
The subscribe button's going to be over there somewhere. Or over here.
I think
wherever YouTube is going to put it in the next week.
That too. And then, also, you can follow us on Twitter or find us on Facebook at Gamecast. So, thanks for tuning in.
With fours, Gamecast with fours. For the A.
Matt, just stop. Good night.